And welcome back, guys. Duval, LeBlanc here. So this video, we are going to be going over regions, availability zones, resource groups, and stuff like that. And I'm going to really try and finish off this module because I want to get the next one started, which is compute and network services. This is still in the second part of describing Azure architecture. So I did upload a video showing how to create VMs in the CLI. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check that out. One more thing, I'm gonna start saying this now in the beginning of every video. Please like, and if you enjoyed anything about my video, please comment down just to say, hey, I enjoyed your video. Hey, I liked when you talked about this. It helps um, my video get pushed and stuff. So yeah, so with that being said, let's get into it. Okay, so the last video we were on this slide of this, and we just finished up the that part with the sandbox. So this time we're going to go over this next step. We're going to try and finish out these slides. There's 5 out of 9, so we got a couple more left. And let's go. So I have my notes open, which I will include down in the description so you guys can follow along with my notes that I have for this. They're basically the exact notes that they have, but I added some couple of things, my opinion and perspective and stuff. These are just my notes. I like to write down what if I'm reading something, I like to write it down for myself so I can actually digest what I'm reading, and then I add stuff to it. So anyway, yeah, so let's go. Describe Azure physical infrastructure. So throughout your journey with Microsoft Azure, you'll hear and use terms like regions, availability zones, resources, subscriptions, and more. This module focuses on the core architectural components of Azure. The core architectural components of Azure may be broken down into two main groupings: the physical infrastructure and the management infrastructure. So the physical. So that's going to be regions, AZs or availability zones, region pairs, and stuff like that. So basically, it's going to explain like what's a region, and a region is a geographical area on the planet that contains at least one but potentially multiple data centers that are nearby and networked together with a low latency network. So basically, the region is just like here. So for example, I wonder if they show you it in here. I guess they don't. So there's like US East and stuff like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my Azure and I'm going to show you like a region real quick. So I don't know if I think I deleted all my, East US. So if you see here on location, it says East US, right? This thing here. That's the region that this resource, Cloud Shell Storage, East US, and it actually says it in the name too. So I believe there's a West US and an East US. So the region is just the geographical location. The data center is in the availability zone. So see the availability zone as that, and it says it right here, right? So availability zones are physically separate data centers within an Azure region. Like I was saying, each availability zone is made up of one or more data centers equipped with independent power, cooling, and networking. An availability zone is set up to be an isolation boundary. If one zone goes down, the other continues working. Availability zones are connected throughout high-speed, private fiber optic networks. So, and in this photo, it's showing you that here's your availability zone 1, 2, 3, and they kind of work off each other. If one goes down, it's like similar to like RAID and stuff. Like we have hard drives, they fail over into the next one, and vice versa, right? So it says here, use availability zones in your apps. You want to ensure your services and data are redundant so you can protect your information in case of failure. When you host your infrastructure, setting up your own redundancy requires that you create duplicate hardware environments. So that's important. When you're doing your apps and your services and your solutions and stuff, you want to make sure that they're available in different parts. Now, this costs money, of course, but depending on how important that particular thing you're making is, if that goes down and it's necessary, it's good to know that you had a failover in case it goes down, right? So, um, availability zones are primarily for virtual machines, managed disks, load balancers, and SQL databases. It says right here. Azure services that support availability zones fall into three categories. So that's my note here, right? So it's right here. So zonal services, you pin the resource to a specific zone. Zone redundant services, the platform replicates automatically across zones. And non-regional services. Services are always available from Azure geographies and are resilient to zone-wide outages. So that may sound like kind of a lot here. So my notes, I actually got a better understanding of it. Excuse me, and I wrote it down. So for zonal services, you pin the resource to a specific zone. So this is what I wrote. So to better understand the terminology used here, it is describing the services based on the type of regional support. So basically, the zonal services are services that specific to the zones, so they are referred to as zonal services. Only services that are supported by availability zones are zonal services. So, excuse me, that's just a better way to kind of understand what that was saying, right? And then the next one, zone redundant services. So the services that are supported by redundant zones. So these services are reserved for any service that has access to replication of data across zones, right? And that's for like storage and databases and stuff. So stuff like that. Non-regional services. So services are always available from Azure geographies and are resilient to zone-wide outages. So this says non-regional. So it's not dependent on a region. So it's available everywhere, right? These services are supported by zones that are replicated across regions, so they are not limited to any zone in one region specifically, and therefore not affected by any regional outage. So that's pretty much what that was going over, right? And if we go back to the Microsoft site, so it shows you like this photo here, the geography, and region pairs. So region pairs are paired with another region within the same geography, such as US, Europe, or Asia, at least 300 miles away. This approach allows for the replication of resources across a geography that helps reduce the likelihood of interruptions because of events such as natural disasters, civil unrest, power outages, or physical network outages that affect an entire region. For example, if a region in a pair was affected by a natural disaster, services would automatically fail over to the region in its region pair. So basically, there's a region, they're usually paired with another thing in the region, right? So if a particular thing in that region goes down, its failover is the other region. So it says examples of region pairs in Azure are West US being paired with East US. So East US goes down, it's paired with West US. It goes over to West US because it's paired. However, there are certain regions that are not like cohesive like that. They're not tethered to each other. And I believe it goes over that in one of these. I'm trying to find where I wrote that. There's a particular. Oh, here we go. So this part here. Most regions are paired in two directions, meaning they're the backup for the other regions. So West US, US East, US West. They're together, right? However, some regions such as West India and Brazil South are paired in only one direction. So they're not, if this is this one and this is this one, they're not paired, they're like over here. So in a one direction pairing, the primary region does not provide backup for its secondary region. So even though West India's secondary region is South India, so West India's is South India, India does not rely on, or South India does not rely on West India. West India's secondary region is South India, but South India's secondary region is Central India. So it's kind of like this. It's going like this. So Brazil South is unique because it's paired with a region outside of its geography. Brazil South secondary region is South Central US. So the secondary region of South Central US isn't even Brazil South. So it's just showing you that there's certain regions that aren't one-to-one ratioed like paired. So, and the last thing for this part is sovereign regions. So I think I write any more of that one. So okay, so in addition to regular regions, Azure also has sovereign regions. Sovereign regions are instances of Azure that are isolated from the main instance of Azure. You may need to use a sovereign region for compliance or legal purposes. Azure sovereign regions include US DoD Central, US Government Virginia, US Government Iowa, and more. These regions are physical and logical network isolated instances of Azure for US government agencies and partners. These data centers are operated by screened US personnel and include additional certifications. And the other ones outside of the US, China East, China North, they're only available through a unique partnership between Microsoft and 21 ViaNet, whereby Microsoft doesn't even maintain those data centers in China. So that's pretty much this section here. Pretty straightforward with that. And let's go on to the next one. All right, so next section. Describe Azure Management Infrastructure. So we did the physical one and the last one. This is the management infrastructure. All right, so describe Azure Management Infrastructure. The management infrastructure includes Azure resources and resource groups, subscriptions, and accounts. Understanding the hierarchical organization will help you plan your projects and products within Azure. And it has here resource group, Azure resources and resource groups. A resource is the basic building block of Azure. Anything you create, provision, deploy, etc. is a resource. Virtual machines, virtual networks, databases, cognitive services, etc. are all considered resources within Azure. Okay, so it's pretty self-explanatory. And if you go here, this is my Azure. These are my resource groups that after I deleted my VMs. I'm gonna in the next exercise after this, you actually create. I believe you create a VM, right? What do you create? You create something. Or you just create an Azure resource. So you'll see in real time like what it is actually. But if you look here, if I go back home and I go to resource groups, these are the only two that I have after I deleted my VMs. And it has this network watcher, which is like I Google it. It's like a data thing that if you read it here, someone says, "What is the network watcher?" And this guy says, "Network watcher resources are located in the hidden network watcher RG resource group, which is created automatically. For example, the NSG flow logs resource is a child resource of Network Watcher and is enabled in the Network Watcher RG. The Network Watcher resource represents the back-end service for Network Watcher. It's just kind of like a thing that's just data that's like scanning stuff in the background. It's fully managed by Azure. Customers do not need to manage it. Operations like move are not supported on the resources. However, it can be deleted. So it's just something that tracks things, right? But it is a resource group in and of itself. And inside of it, there's these two things, the two regions. And it's being watched, or the two regions are in, I guess that they're using this thing to track a resource in both regions, I guess. Like we can click on it, and it's a resource within the resource group Network Watcher RG. All right, so basically, you can't ever create a resource without putting it in a resource group. And like even if you're trying to create a VM or something like that, you first have to create a resource group to put it in or assign it one. So yeah, so let's go back here. All right, so resource groups are simply groupings of resources. When you create a resource, you're required to place it into a resource group. While a resource group can contain many resources, a single resource can only be in one resource group at a time. That's important. Some resources may be moved between resource groups, but when you move a resource to a new group, it will no longer be associated with the former. Additionally, resource groups can't be nested, meaning you can't put a resource group B inside of resource group A. Okay, so they're mothers. They're just they bring down child. They can't be put in other things. Resource groups provide a convenient way to group resources together. When you apply an action to a resource group, that action will apply to all of the resources within the group. So all the nested childs in it, it gets applied. It's like object-oriented stuff. If you delete a resource group, all the resources will be deleted. If you grant or deny access to a resource group, you've granted or denied access to all of the resources within the resource group. When you're provisioning resources, it's good to think about the resource group structure that best suits your needs. For example, if you're setting up a temporary dev environment, grouping all the resources together means you can deprovision all of the associated resources at once by deleting the resource group. And if we go here, I think, yeah, so I kind of just write that a little bit on the notes here. So yeah, pretty much a resource group houses resources. Everything that you put in there is a reflection of what you align the resource group policies with. So everything that exists within it is a child of the resource group. Next, so Azure subscriptions. In Azure, subscriptions are a unit of management, billing, and scale. Similar to how resource groups are a way to logically organize resources, subscriptions allow you to logically organize your resource groups and facilitate billing. Using Azure requires an Azure subscription. A subscription provides you with authenticated and authorized access to Azure products and services. It allows you to provision resources. An Azure subscription links to an Azure account, which is an identity in a Microsoft Entra ID, or in a directory that Microsoft Entra ID trusts. So Entra ID or Azure AD, the old name, it's just the identity, the like Active Directory and stuff like that. But this is the cloud Azure variant of it. It links to that. It says an Azure subscription links to an account, which is an identity in Microsoft. So your account is housed in an identity of Microsoft Entra ID. So when you have your own account, it automatically is an identity in Entra. An account can have multiple subscriptions, but it's only required to have one. In a multi-subscription account, you can use the subscription to configure different billing modes and apply different access management policies. You can use Azure subscriptions to define boundaries around Azure products, services, and resources. So it's kind of going over that. You can like have one Azure account here and split the subscriptions into 3 different groupings, like a dev, a testing one, and a production. So you have a billing boundary that says this subscription type determines how an Azure account is billed for using Azure. I wonder if I added any notes to that. Oh, I did. Did it? No, I didn't. I just wrote that. So access control boundary. Azure applies access management policies at the subscription level, and you can create separate subscriptions to reflect different organizational structures. An example is that within a business, you have different departments to which you apply distinct Azure subscription policies. This billing model allows you to manage and control access to the resources that users provision with specific subscriptions. That's a lot of words. So basically saying an example is that within a business, you have different departments, okay, to which you apply distinct, okay. The billing model allows you to manage, okay, so it's just saying in your business, you have accounting, you have marketing, you have sales, you have IT, you have HR. All of those are billing accounts. Okay, so the billing accounts, I guess it's saying, is the subscriptions, right? So at the subscription level, and you can create separate subscriptions to prevent different organizational structures. So yeah, which you apply, there it is. So you have different departments to which you apply distinct Azure subscription policies. So if you have those different departments in your business, that's where you can apply a subscription to. And it makes it better for you to like say, okay, so HR needs more of this, so we'll add this in the HR subscription. Or IT needs this, we're going to add whatever, right? So it's a way for you to group it and be more organized. Let's go down here. Azure management. We'll go over here and just do this a little quick. Create additional Azure subscriptions. Similar to using resource groups to separate resources by function or access, you might want to create additional subscriptions for resource or billing management purposes. For example, you might choose to create additional subscriptions. Yeah, I went over that. That's pretty much what I was saying. Now, the last part here, Azure management groups. The final piece is the management group. Resources are gathered in the resource groups, and resource groups are gathered in their subscriptions. So think about that. Resources on the bottom, they're in resource groups. Resource groups are in subscriptions. If you're just starting in Azure, that might seem like enough hierarchy to keep things organized. But imagine if you're dealing with multiple applications, multiple development teams in multiple geographies. It's a lot. I can't even think of that. So if you have many subscriptions, you might need a way to efficiently manage access policies and compliance for those subscriptions. Azure management groups provide a level of scope above subscriptions. So it's another tier above it. You organize subscriptions into containers called management groups, and you apply governance conditions to the management groups. All subscriptions within a management group automatically inherit the conditions applied to the management group. So basically, it's another tier above subscriptions. Any governance or policy you apply to the group, the management group, it gets pushed down to the subscription and the resource group, and then the resource, right? Management groups give you enterprise grade management at a large scale, no matter what type of subscription you might have. Management groups can be nested. So you can put management groups within each other, but you can't put resource groups within each other. Management group, subscription, and resource group hierarchy. So here's like a picture here. It says the root management group at the top, and then it has HR, IT, marketing. So in HR, the human resource management group has a dev test subscription and the apps. Okay, so the IT management group goes down into the production management group, which splits into the Geo Region 1 and Geo Region 2 management groups, which each have Geo Region 1 has a subscription of EA subscription and EA subscription, and And then the marketing management group gets the free trial subscription and another free trial subscription. And then there's just 2 extra ones. So some examples of how you can use management groups might be create a hierarchy that applies a policy. So you could limit VM locations to the US West region in a group called production. So let's think about that. I could limit VM locations to the US West region in a group called production. This policy will inherit onto all of the subscriptions that are descendants of the management group and will apply to all VMs under those subscriptions. This security policy can't be altered by the resource or subscription owner, which allows for improved governance. So basically, yeah. So the person who is in the management group okay, we'll do that first. So the management group creator applies this policy in the group, then creates a subscription that can do certain amount of things. And let's say, so the engineer that made this, or the admin that made this, applied it to the management group. The person who has access to, let's say it's a manager, HR manager at the subscription level, they can't go up and be changed the management group side. So it gives governance that they can do a certain amount of things, right? It's like Active Directory OUs and group policy and stuff, trees and everything branching. It's similar to that. So yeah, let's continue here. This policy will inherit onto all the subscriptions that are descendants of the management group and will apply to all VMs under those subscriptions. This security policy can't be altered by the resource or subscription owner, which allows for improved governance. Now, the next one is provide user access to multiple subscriptions. By moving multiple subscriptions under a management group, okay, you can create one Azure Role-Based Access Control, RBAC, assignment on the management group. Assigning Azure RBAC at the management group level means that all sub-management group subs, RGs, and resources underneath that management group would also inherit those positions. One assignment on the management group can enable users to have access to. Okay, so basically it's basically like giving. It's like a thing. It's like a tag on this. So say you're in HR, right? You are an employee in HR, and You have access to the HR subscription and whatever floats out of that, resource groups that all HR. But hey, I don't know, maybe you need something in IT management group. The role-based access control is a tag on a particular thing in the IT management group subscription that would give the person who works in HR who is not housed in that group access and control over. So it's just tagging this to, hey, anyone that is in HR on this IT group has access and control and governance over these things. It's just a way to apply control to something that otherwise wouldn't have control over it. Okay. Important facts about management groups. We'll finish up here. 10 management groups can be supported in a single directory. It's a lot. A management group tree can support up to 6 levels of depth. This limit doesn't include the root level or the subscription level. Each management group and subscription can support only one parent. And so that's that part. And let's go to the next one because that was a lot. All right, so this is unit 7. So we're on this next one, and it's create an Azure resource. So I went ahead and activated the sandbox, and I got it loaded already, so I have to wait for that. Okay, so in this exercise, you'll use the Azure portal to create a resource. The focus of the exercise is observing how Azure resource groups populate with creative resources. So when I went and I showed you guys this, we're gonna do like an actual real-time thing of it. So first, create a virtual machine. In this task, you'll create a virtual machine using the Azure portal. Sign into the portal, compute virtual machine. I guess it wants me to do that. So you know what? I'm going to, should I do it that way? Because you know what, I'm going to do it this way. I know a Azure CLI code that can just create a VM. But I guess the purpose of this is to see the actual resource group. So you know what? Let's refresh this. And it should load the sandbox directory, right? Let me see. I may have to change it because I don't use the sandbox anymore. Oh, here it is. So here it is. Okay, so now we're in the sandbox. And we're going to basically create the resource. So let's go back here. All right, select resource, compute virtual machine. So I haven't done this in a minute. So I don't create virtual machines with the portal. I usually use CLI. But let's do it this way because it's the beginning. In this task, you'll select create a resource. Okay. So what I'm going to do is let's split this screen here. And so I want to apologize this part. I don't know why I did this. It when I split the screen, it smushed both of the tabs I had open together. They're kind of squished, and I don't know. I guess while I'm pulling the video, recording it, and I changed the resolution and I split it, maybe the codec had an issue. I don't know. It just looks kind of odd. So bear with me for the rest of that video. It just looks kind of weird, but you can still read it and stuff. It's just smushed. So sorry. Let's put this here. Okay. So, all right. So sign into the portal, create a resource. So we go to create resource. And what are we doing? Virtual machine, right? All right, virtual machine and create. So create. And so in the sandbox, I have it open already. I had to switch my sandbox. If you look here, it shows that it says Microsoft Learn Sandbox is my directory. It's not my default personal directory. So after I create it, it's going to delete itself and everything. But you have to activate it and do stuff. Create a virtual machine that runs Linux or Windows. Does it care which ones I do? It tells you what the settings you want. All right, subscription, concierge, subscription, resource group begins with learn. So this one, learn, and then it auto configured a couple of things. Virtual machine name, my VM. So let's name it my VM. Region leave default, availabilities leave run with Azure. Size, leave default, authentication type. Where's that? Password. Because we're not doing secure shell key. Secure shell is just a way to get into the virtual machine, like log into it, whether it be remotely using SSH, secure shell, from another host, or if we're signing into it. Usually cloud providers have a way where if you sign into your account, that proves you are who you are. So it usually automatically signs you in. But if you want, this VM can be accessed from another like host. So it has to authenticate who you are, so it has a key. But you can also do password as well. So does it want me to enter a password? So I'll enter password, pro password, proto password, whatever. This isn't my real password. I use keeper password, which generates a password. But hold on. Wait. Oh, username. Oh, wow, I can't read, bro. Okay, so let's do LeBlanc. And then my password will be proto. I was wondering why I was showing my password. I was like, what the heck? Proto password. Oh, can't use that. There. And inbound port rules. Select which virtual machine. Isn't that none? Okay. None. And let's see. Is that it? Azure user. Oh. It wanted me to enter that the whole time. Reading is fundamental. Oh man, I'm just trying to zip through this. So, all right. It's not ARM. ARM is for a small architecture um stuff. So hold on. So Ubuntu, cool. Yeah, that's it. Product details will include a cost associated with creating the virtual machine. This is the system funding. If you're creating the VM, you won't actually incur costs. We know. So review and create. Okay. Boom. So it's creating it. So let's see what it does here. If it takes over, oh, I was gonna say, if it took over 10 seconds, I would have cut it and jumped to where it is. So it passed the validation. Here's the price per hour, 11 cents per hour if I were to make this in for real. But this is to learn, so there is no, you won't incur a cost. So create, it's creating the virtual machine. And let's see here. So what's interesting is don't save. All right, so it's deploying it. So once the deployment is created, you can verify that Azure created not only a VM but all of the associated resources the VM needs. So it's interesting here, something I didn't realize. So when I went to the CLI, and I have code that can just, if you look at my video I just uploaded where I call create a VM in the Azure CLI, it forces you to either assign a resource group or otherwise it'll fail. So this one, it looks like it makes the resource group as you're making the virtual machine. Because basically you can't just make a virtual machine without it being housed in a group, a resource group. So it gave me the notification saying it was successful, it succeeded in deploying that. So let's go to the resource. So this is the virtual machine, and as you can see, this is the resource group here, this long name. All right, select the long resource group. So these are all the housed resources inside of the group here. I guess that's what it's explaining. You should see a list of resources in the resource group. The storage account and virtual network are associated with the Learn Sandbox. However, the rest of the resources were created when you create the virtual machine. By default, Azure gave them all a similar name to help association and group them in the same resource group. Congratulations! You've created a resource in Azure and had a chance to see how resources get grouped on creation. All right, cool. So that's pretty much it. So if you were to go to my personal one and I did this, these two still keep charges. So if you choose to delete like the VM or deallocate it, you will still be charged for the IP that's being housed for that VM. So you have to delete the whole resource group to not incur any charges. So anyway, with that being said, we'll stop it there and we'll go to the last module, which is the knowledge check. All right, last part. We're almost there. We're in the clear. We're almost in the clear. All right, so unit 8 of 9, knowledge check. Choose the best response for each question, then select multiple choice, right? So first one, how many resource groups can a resource be in at the same time? 1. You can only be in one resource group. It can't be more than one. What happens to the resources within a resource group when an action or setting at the resource group level is applied? So a setting is applied to current and future resources. So once you do apply some type of governance to that group in a resource group, it applies it to everything in the group and all future child stuff inherited down. What Azure feature replicates resources across regions region pairs. So this is a good one. Region pairs, availability zones. The availability zones are in the one region. Region pairs are in region over here, East US, West US. Those are separated by 300 miles. So region pairs. Boom. Right. So that's pretty much it. And we can go to the last page. It's like a summary. In this module, you learned about the physical and management structures of Microsoft Azure. You were introduced to the relationship between data centers, availability zones, and regions. You explored how the infrastructure supports the benefits of the cloud, such as high availability and reliability. You also learned about the management infrastructure of Azure. You explored how resources and resource groups are related and how subscriptions and management groups can help manage resources. You should now be able to describe Azure regions, region pairs, sovereign regions, AZs, data centers, resources, resource groups, subscriptions, management groups, and the hierarchy of all three. So, yeah. That's pretty much it. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We are going to do, let's see, the next video will be on, let's see here. So that was the first part we did, right? The core architectural components. So hold on, let's go to the AZ-900 real quick. So, oh crap, it brought me up. So let me just go to here. So go here. So we just did, that's it? Huh. Huh. Interesting. So what's, oh, I see. Okay. So yeah, we just did this. Sorry, like God, I don't know what happened there. Like I forgot that this has 4 different things in it. Okay. So we just did this one. The next one is compute and networking. I started it and we're gonna go through it. Okay. So that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this video and let's learn this Azure stuff so we can get those certs and get down and get careered and get all that good stuff, right? So hope you guys have a good one. Peace.